3 games for Michigan State. Favorites once, winners 3 times. We talk Michigan State football. We got Ryan O'Glennis on the line from SB Nation's platform for Michigan State athletics. The only colors. Michigan State, of course, dives into Big Ten play this week against Nebraska at home. Let's look back, though, against this win against Miami. As I referenced off the top, Michigan State now an underdog 2 of the 3 games to start the season. They went to Northwestern, took care of business. And let's see, it just hit me a second ago. Same score, 38-17 over Miami in owning the fourth quarter. And that even more impressive considering that, of course, Miami was at home in its element from a weather standpoint, and Michigan State and Mel Tucker very much made a point that they were going to prove to be the tougher team, the team that was in better shape, better condition to win the fourth quarter.
Yeah, they brought them into the deep water, as Tucker refers to it as, which essentially means, we think we're tougher than you. We're going to bring you in to where we live. Let's see how you handle it. And to MSU's credit, they didn't let that heat and humidity down there in South Florida really affect them at all. In fact, they appeared to be the team that got better, got tougher as the game went on into the fourth quarter because, they were the better conditioned team. A lot of the players gave credit to the support staff, especially, the head performance dietitian, Amber Reinstein, and, other kind of people behind the scenes for getting them really ready for that game.
So Michigan State again stands at 3-0. They've beaten the Big Ten Western Division champions. Now they beat a Miami team that was ranked top 15 in the country to start the season. And certainly once we got to this Miami game, I picked Michigan State to win the game. I did not pick them to beat Northwestern on opening night. It wasn't any great surprise, but maybe winning by 3 touchdowns was a bit of a surprise to some people. How many people do you think covering Michigan State football or the fan base from a reasonable standpoint thought that they would be 3-0 at this point?
Yeah, I'd say 3-4 weeks ago before the season started, a lot of people looked at the schedule and kind of counted Miami as an automatic loss. I thought it would be a loss, but I thought it would be close. Miami is often really hyped up in the season, but rarely performs at that level. But still, they were, going on to the road to Miami. That's a tough environment. That's a tough game. That's a tough team with a lot of good athletes. So far, I think at 3-0, not many people had that. Some people thought Michigan State might have won 3 or 4 games the entire season. I was kind of more in that 6 or 7 realm. I think now the ceiling's more around 9 or 10 wins.
Sure, looks like it. And with Ohio State having their issues, looks like a wide open Big Ten race overall, but certainly in the Eastern Division. But that's certainly something that will unfold week to week. So it starts with Nebraska, of course, this week. So taking us through the offense and the defense, it appears as though Michigan State pretty much is relying on a formula that we've seen for many years during their vintage years, where the running game is certainly, correct me if I'm wrong, was a calling card under Mark D'Antonio, but they got very much away from the running game his last 3, 4, 5 years, where they became more of a passing team. And you had this perception, I think there was nationally, that Michigan State's a lunch pail team. They're going to run the ball down your throat. They're going to bully you along the offensive line. And that wasn't necessarily the case the last several years under Mark D'Antonio. And they're getting back to that. And certainly Kenneth Walker is a monster.
Yeah, absolutely. The last, like you mentioned, maybe 3 seasons, MSU really struggled to run the ball. It's not necessarily that they were abandoning the run. It was simply that they couldn't do it. They didn't have the offensive line play. A lot of the offensive linemen were either hurt or weren't playing up to the level that was expected of them. The running backs weren't performing well. Last year in 2020, MSU ranked toward the bottom in both yards per game and yards per attempt in FBS. They were, in the 120s out of 127 teams. This year, so far through 3 games, I think it's around a 58%, 42% run pass split. So they're still definitely running it more often than not, but they're also using that running game, using the threat of Kenneth Walker to set up things like the play action passes, the quick pass game. A guy like Walker, you have that constant threat of he's going to get the ball. And even when he doesn't have space, he's able to create plays by himself. So, just having Walker in the backfield, that is actually an advantage for the passing game, because if if defenses are bringing more guys to the box to try to contain Walker, you're opening up the passing game. So it's kind of worked out both ways so far.
When Kenneth Walker made the move during the offseason from Wake Forest to Michigan State, I certainly noted it because I had seen him play at Wake Forest enough to know that he was a quality back. I didn't think it made much waves from a national perspective. People weren't necessarily pointing to that as being some tremendous addition. And I'm not saying that I predicted him to be averaging 200 yards a game. Now he carried it 27 times against Miami, and just the combination of the explosion and the power is pretty impressive. Do they want for him to carry the load for 27 carries per game? Do we expect that to be what the strategy is?
The coaching staff probably doesn't want to give him, the ball that many times per game. They probably want to try to keep him fresh throughout the season. And they can rotate guys in like Jordan Simmons or Harold Joyner or other guy. Elijah Collins is hurt right now, but when he's healthy, he's another guy that rotates in. But yeah, the offense is going to flow through Walker while he's out there. Against Youngstown State, for example, like the team knew that they were going to win that game pretty easily, so he got 7 carries. I think in games like Miami, games maybe this week against Nebraska, where they really need to rely on Walker, they're not going to necessarily limit his touches. They're going to, give him the ball when they need to, but at the same time, that probably is a concern for the coaching staff, is making sure he stays fresh throughout the season. Well, remember the Michigan State actually opened the season with a Big Ten game against Northern Tuesday. They want to know already in it, but yeah, this is kind of starting the heart of Big Ten play. It's going to be Nebraska this week, and then Western Kentucky next week, and then after that, it's the full Big Ten slate. And so this game against Nebraska is very important to make sure to get a win. Start, Big Ten play 2-0. The first 2 games are both against the cross division rivals over there in the West with Northwestern and Nebraska, but it's still important to get these wins in conference.
Hey, Ryan, when we look at the Michigan State defense, who are those guys that are standing out and making plays through 3 games?
Xavier Henderson, he's the big one. He's the captain of the team. He's the only player on the team who's been voted a captain every week, because Mel Tucker likes to rotate captains each week. So he's not only the leader of the defense, he's the leader of the entire team. He's been, they've used him all over the field at the safety position, whether he's playing deeper in the box or in the slot or what. He's just been making plays like crazy. He's a very, very good player back there in the defensive backfield. Cale Halliday and Quavaris Crouch are the linebackers who have been making a lot of plays. They rotate some of those guys in too, with guys like Ben Van Sumeren, another transfer. Crouch was a transfer from Tennessee. Van Sumeren from Michigan, and you got Chase Klein, you got Noah Harvey, you got different guys rotating in there. But Halliday and Crouch have been linebackers who are getting most of the reps and always be able to find the ball. And then, defensive line, you got a lot of guys rotating in and out, especially at the defensive end positions. Drew Beasley was a big-time player against Miami. He had a strip sack against De'Aaron King that set Michigan State up for a touchdown in the 4th quarter. I believe that, after that, the Spartans never looked back, so that was a huge play. I think he actually had 2 sacks in the game. Jacob Panashuk is another veteran defensive end there, and Drew Jordan is a due transfer who rotates in. And so, yeah, there's a lot of different guys who have been making an impact on defense. You kind of saw it against Miami where they, the coaching staff hasn't come out and really said that they're playing a bend but don't break style, but you can kind of tell that's what the game plan was last week. Charleston Rambo was just tearing MSU up in the first half, but they were giving him a lot of cushion to make the plays and kind of keeping everything in front of them and not, getting beat deep. So at the end of the day, it worked out. A lot of MSU fans were not happy about how the first half went on Twitter in that regard. But, it actually really worked to the Spartans' advantage, because even though they were giving up yards, they weren't giving up points.
Yeah, when you see that as an observer, and I'm watching the game with no rooting interest, just watching a good football game, a game that I've wanted to see for months, and you see Charleston Rambo just basically run 8 or 9 yards, stop and hitch, and just catch the ball, and the cornerback's not in the frame ever, and they just do this repeatedly. And I think he caught like 5 passes on one drive. And like 14 passes for the game. You just think, what are you doing? Because they got a few drops from other receivers. Will Mallory, a tight end, Mike Harley. Rambo was clearly the target and was clearly the guy that was feared by the Michigan State secondary to go deep on them, but it just doesn't look like a sound strategy. But when you hold the team to 17 points and you make them go the length of the field, and you know, the probabilities that they can do that continually, you're playing the math and playing again the ratios, and it worked out.
Yeah, exactly. It was definitely an interesting strategy, but you know, I think the coaching staff knew what they were doing, even if it was frustrating, you know, the spectators. But you know, it worked out.
Hey Ryan, I wanted to circle back to the offense. I should have hit you up on Peyton Thorne. When I watch him play, it's like I'm watching Brian Lewerke. And I don't know if that's I don't know if it's just a look out there or that's an apt comparison, because he seems like, okay, he's mobile, he can run, he can break contain on a third down and pick up a first down, but he's not some crazy Lamar Jackson, Michael Vick dynamic runner, but he's more than mobile, more than capable from that standpoint. He's capable throwing the ball. He can make most of the throws, but he doesn't have a gun. He's not any kind of elite passer, but he looks like he's a gamer. He's a baller, and he's mobile, and he's got an adequate arm.
Yeah, I think you said it. A big thing that Mel Tucker and offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach Jay Johnson often preaches, that your quarterback needs to be your number one competitor on your team, and that's what Thorne is, and that's why he won the job. He actually just won Big Ten Offensive Player of the Week as well for his performance against Miami, and the Manning Award for Week 3. He, like you said, he doesn't have the strongest arm, but what he does is he doesn't turn the football over, for one. He doesn't have a single turnover through 3 games. You know, so he's either putting the ball where his receiver can get it, or he's getting rid of it. You know, making the smart play, and he's doing a great job just leading the offense. You know, I think his mobility is an underrated aspect of his game, because, you know, kind of like Lewerke, he's got the wheels that when the play breaks down, he can pick up a first down with his feet. We saw him do it against Miami. And he is just, you know, the kind of, what I've been saying is, he looks like he's been the perfect guy for this offense that Michigan State has been trying to run. He's been very impressive.
Got Ryan O'Blennis on the line from the Only Colors. It's the SB Nation platform for Michigan State athletics. Of course, Sparty is 3-0. They're hosting Nebraska in their second Big Ten game of the season. Sparty, of course, 1-0 in conference play, beating Northwestern on the opening Friday night. So Mel Tucker looking for a big showing out of the crowd, wants Nebraska to feel it going on the road in the Big Ten. Tell us a little bit about the home field advantage strategy.
Yeah, so Michigan State is going to be doing their annual Strike the Stadium game for the primetime game here against Nebraska, where you're going to have fans who are sitting in even sections wearing green, and fans who are sitting in odd sections and in the student section wearing white. So it's going to be alternating green and white, you know, go green, go white. And it's you know, it's really, really cool to see when they do the overhead shots of the different, you know, the green and then the white and the green and the white throughout Spartan Stadium. So, you know, Mel Tucker has called on the fans to, you know, come out, be loud. You know, he said on third down, he doesn't want Nebraska's quarterback to be able to hear. You know, Tucker is really expecting a home field advantage with the striping of the stadium, with the, you know, fans just being rowdy, being excited to be back in the stadium after a year of not being able to do that.
Nebraska, of course, just left Norman, Oklahoma, A pretty difficult place to play against Oklahoma and gave them a fight 23-16. I don't think they're going to be necessarily intimidated by Michigan State's home atmosphere, but that's still, I'm not discrediting the effort. You need to develop and create a home atmosphere and a home field advantage. That it certainly comes into play. There's no question about that. And just watching Nebraska play 4 games this season, and I saw basically the 2 meaningful games against quality opponents, the Illinois game, the Oklahoma game. This spread's at 5, and I just think the Huskers are going to have all sorts of issues scoring points at Michigan State.
Yeah, the thing about it is Nebraska always seems to play Michigan State tough. They're 9-2 all time against MSU. And even when Michigan State seems to be the better team, Nebraska somehow pulls it out. The last time they played in 2018, it was just a really low-scoring, boring game. Nebraska ended up winning 9-6. And then the year
snow, right?
Yeah, it was snowing a bit. And then the game that they played before that was the 2015 season where Michigan State actually made the college football playoff, and that was in Lincoln. Nebraska actually won that game by a point. There was a questionable call there at the end that looked like some illegal touching by a wide receiver who ran out of bounds, came back in and caught the game-winning touchdown. But I digress. Nebraska got the win there.
They did. They went 5-7 that year. Not necessarily the candidate that you would think would knock off a college football playoff contender. But that's what happened back in 2015. Ryan, we appreciate you stopping by, breaking down Michigan State football for us. Sparty, of course, with a huge game here, and the way things are shaping up in the Big Ten Eastern Division, I know that there's not been a whole lot of football played within conference play. Penn State's already picked up a big win at Wisconsin. Of course, everybody's looking at Ohio State struggling. Michigan looks stronger. Wow, Indiana, despite 2 losses already, they're a capable team. Maryland's jumped out to 3-0. It could be a lot of fun, and for the first time in a long time, pretty unpredictable.
Yeah, the Big Ten East, I think, is one of the toughest divisions in all of college football. Michigan's looking good right now. Obviously Ohio State's still the team to beat, but they don't look maybe quite as strong as they have in years past. As you mentioned, Penn State, they're looking really good right now. Even Rutgers is playing good football right now. Like you said, Maryland's 3-0. Indiana has gotten off to a tough start, but they've had a tough schedule. They still have a very talented roster. This division, it's a murderer's row. So whoever can survive that, is going to come out on top. But yeah, at this point in time, it looks wide open.